Hey there, students. My name is Nathan and I am a Chegg tutor. Today we're going to be talking about cost per equivalent unit for the weighted average method. So how to calculate the cost per equivalent unit for the weighted average method. Now in an earlier video I did the FIFO method, and today you'll see how the weighted average method is used for process costing. So first off, what is an equivalent unit? Well, in process costing, these are mainly manufacturing firms that produce what they call homogeneous products. So they're the same products they produce over and over again. So imagine an assembly line. So during the work in process, when they're working on the product, these products are considered partially completed. So these units have not been fully completed yet, but they will be. But currently they're in work in process, so they are partially completed. So for equivalent units, these production facilities like to translate those partially completed units into whole units. So for example here, if 5 units are currently being worked on in work in process, and they are only 60% complete, we would translate those 5 60% partially completed units to 3 completed units. 5 times 60% is 3. And those 3 units are called equivalent units. So how do you calculate cost per equivalent unit? Well, the very first step is to identify all the physical units. Beginning work in process plus units started during the period equals units completed plus ending work in process. Now for the weighted average method, we're only going to focus on the second part of the equation, which is units completed and transferred out plus ending work in process. It makes things a lot easier. So from there, step 2, we'll calculate those equivalent units. So we're using weighted average, so we're going to focus on all the work done to date, not just the current period work like FIFO. So we're focusing on all the work. So you have to ask yourself, in respect to materials, what is your percentage of completion? In respect to conversion costs, what is your percentage of completion? Now step 3, what are the total costs? So these are usually given in the problem. So what total costs were incurred? And that's not during the period, but to date. So all the costs incurred to date. So this usually comprises beginning inventory costs and costs during the period. All the costs, beginning and the costs during the period. Now step 4, what is the cost per equivalent unit? Just take your total costs from step 3 and divide it by your equivalent units from step 2. And that equals cost per equivalent unit. So that's some of the basic concepts revolving around calculating cost per equivalent unit for a weighted average method. Now let's go ahead and focus on a problem here. So I used the same example from the FIFO video that I did. So Intertrode Inc., they manufacture basketballs. Let's assume that one basketball or one unit requires only leather as direct materials. There's assembly line workers that work within the manufacturing facility. The facility requires overhead of rent, insurance, and utilities. So we divide these into 2 different cost pools, direct materials and conversion costs. Now once again, conversion costs is direct labor and overhead. There are 200 units in beginning work in process, 400 units that were started during the month of April. There were 500 units completed and transferred out, and 100 units that were left in ending inventory. With respect to beginning inventory, direct materials is 100% complete, conversion costs are 40% complete. With respect to ending inventory, direct materials are 100% complete and conversion costs are 60% complete. During April, Intertrode had 20 grand in direct materials and 17,500 in conversion. Beginning work in process had 8 grand for direct materials and 9,700 for conversion. So here are the 3 questions. How many physical units do we need to account for? What are the equivalent units for direct materials and conversion costs? And what is the cost per equivalent unit? So once again here, we're going to be focusing on the second half of the equation. So that's units completed plus ending work in process. That's the easiest way to do it. But I'll do the full equation here. So beginning work in process, 200 units plus units started during the period of 400 units equals completed units of 500 and ending WIP, ending work in process, of 100 units. So total units to account for is 600. Now the next question is, what are the equivalent units for direct materials and conversion costs? Well, it's a little easier than FIFO. So again, we're just going to focus on the second half of the equation, the units that were completed and transferred out and ending work in process. So units completed and transferred out, and then ending work in process. And we'll divide it up again into direct materials and conversion costs. So units completed and transferred out. Well, there was 500 units that were completed and transferred out. So if they're completed, for equivalent units, what's the percentage of completion? 100%. Pretty easy. So again, if they're completed already, they're 100% complete. So you would have 500 units for direct materials and 500 for conversion. Once again, those are completed and transferred out that we talked about earlier up here. 500 units that were completed. Now, ending work in process is a little bit different. So for ending work in process, looks like there's 100 units total. That's total units. Now for equivalent units, it's a little different. So it says that direct materials are considered 100% complete. So we know that it will be 100 units because 100% times 100 is 100. However, for conversion, a little bit different. It says there's only 60% complete there. So 100 times 60% is 60 units. So total units here, 600 for materials and 560 for conversion. So what is the cost per equivalent unit? Well, we need to get the total costs to date. So not just current period like FIFO, but total costs. So that's going to be comprised of these two lines. So beginning work in process, 8,000 for materials and 9,700 for conversion. So we'll just go start with direct materials first. So 8,000 at the beginning, and then 20,000 was incurred during the period. So for materials, I'll use the same column, 28,000 for materials. And then for conversion, it's 17,500 plus 9,700. So let's add that up here. Plus 9,700. So 27,200. So from there, we're going to divide by our equivalent units. 28,000 divided by 600. 27,200 divided by 560. And so our cost per equivalent unit will be equal to $46.67, and 27,200 divided by 560, $48.57. There you go. So not too difficult there. It's a little easier than FIFO, in my opinion, since you don't have to worry about the beginning inventory and figuring out what was completed during the period, what was completed not during the period. It's always just the costs to date, or the work done to date with weighted average. Hopefully that was helpful for y'all today. Feel free to rewind, fast forward, make sure you go through the video to absorb this concept fully. Once again, my name is Nathan, and I am a Chegg tutor. So you can find me here at this link. I go by Nathan G on Chegg.com. Feel free to message me for some homework help, one-on-one tutoring, or exam prep. I'd be happy to hear from you and happy to work with you. Once again, thanks for listening today, and I'll see you in the next video.